Welcome to Kathryn Raaker's World. Innovation, culture, adventure, fashion and health, artists, destinations, traditions. This is Kathryn Raaker's World.
Hi, this is Kathryn Raaker of Kathryn Raaker's World, and let's just talk. Our guest today, I've known for many years, and I'm so proud to have him representing me in Ohio. His name is Bill Seitz, or William Seitz III, and he is the House Majority Leader as state representative for the 30th District of the Ohio House of Representatives. He is a Republican. The district consists of Shivia, Delhi Township, Green Township.
Yes.
As well as portions of Cincinnati and Hamilton County. And we are so excited to have you. You've been leader, majority leader, minority leader, all kinds of leaders within the House, right? And you have actually on April 26th of 2021, you supported the $14.4 million in local COVID-19 relief funding. And you also worked on the bill, another bill about Bill 294, and you're also
working. Yep, right. We got that. Right. Still moving along, right?
You got that one done, and you're working. Are you working on a comprehensive election law now?
Well, that's 294. That's
294
the integrity bill, and we look to get that passed later this year. I've also been deeply involved, Kathryn, in the recently passed sports betting bill, which we are now going to bring sports betting to Ohio, joining many of our neighboring states that have already done so. And that took an awful lot of time this past fall, but we finally got it done.
Wow. Tell me what's happening. I heard that the nice thing about, we just brought in a huge company for actually Intel.
Yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes.
And how many people it's going to hire?
Sure. It's always great to start out with a good news story because there's so little good news anymore in the news. Right. This is a blockbuster development for Ohio and for the United States. Currently, 75% of the world's supply of semiconductor chips are made in communist China, Taiwan, and other Asian countries. Right. And the worldwide chip shortage has caused grievous problems in our economy. The good news is that Intel, one of the larger semiconductor manufacturers in the United States, has just concluded a deal with the state of Ohio to invest $20 billion, that's with a B, $billion in what will be the United States' largest semiconductor manufacturing plant. And if the federal government matches the kind of incentives that we are offering Intel to build that plant here in Ohio, in Licking County, we have been told that Intel plans to quintuple that $20 billion investment so that it will be a $100 billion investment. It will create 3,000 direct jobs, paying an average of $135,000 a year. So these are real good jobs. Another 7,000 construction jobs over the course of just the initial $20 billion build. It will add $2.8 billion, that's with a B, to the Ohio gross state product. It is just a wonderful, wonderful development because we were in competition with 40 other states. Wow. And Intel chose us. Intel is a very large company. They're based out of California. Hopefully they'll leave their California social values in California and bring their their California manufacturing know-how to Ohio, but it's a great, great, great development. And we helped to make it happen because the legislature in Ohio, in our budget that we passed last June, included a new form of a tax break that we were told at the time is integral to our chances of landing a major chip manufacturer to build a plant in Ohio. And of course, they wouldn't tell us who it was. That was a closely guarded secret. But we took it on faith from our friends at Jobs Ohio and in the DeWine administration that this kind of a mega project warrants some state investment. And we did it. We did it in June. The package is now being finalized. Just today, Governor DeWine's folks announced that the total incentive package that we're offering to Intel is going to be $1.3 billion in direct tax incentives and another $600 million in infrastructure assistance, because we're going to have to obviously build out a lot of roads and other facilities to accommodate such a massive plant. But this is really, Kathryn, the best news to hit Ohio since we landed the Honda plant up in Marysville, and that's been more than 30 years ago. But we hope it's going to have exactly the same wonderful results for Ohio that Honda plant did, because it wasn't just the Honda plant, it was all of the automotive suppliers that located within 100 miles of that plant throughout all of Ohio that are providing jobs and taxes and employment opportunities and other great benefits to Ohio. So we think this is the next big home run, the biggest one we've hit since Honda, and that was 30 years ago. It's really good news for Ohio.
One of the questions that I want to ask you actually is, how are we doing as far as the voting situation in the state of Ohio?
Sure. Well, that's a different topic. Ohio ran a clean election in 2020. Right. No one is contesting that Donald Trump's 8-point victory in Ohio was anything other than Donald Trump's 8-point victory in Ohio. And so we do a lot of things in Ohio that other states do not do. We have a logic and accuracy testing of every piece of voting equipment that is performed before Election Day. We have post-election audits that are done after every election. We have requirements for voter ID that are stringent. We do not allow people to have their absent ballots postmarked after the day before Election Day. We expressly prohibit ballot harvesting, which is this fashionable practice in California and other places where individuals will go out and basically harvest ballots and either turn them in or don't turn them in, depending on whether they think those votes are for their candidate or against their candidate. So we do things pretty cleanly in Ohio, but there's always room for improvement. I'll give you some examples of what's in my election integrity bill. Number one, for years, the boards of elections in Ohio have begged us, do not allow early in-person voting on the Monday before Election Day. Why? Because we are busy getting ready for Election Day, which takes from 6:30 in the morning till 7:30 at night, because Ohio is very generous in the number of voting hours that we allow. So my bill eliminates that Monday of in-person voting, takes those 6 hours that we used to allocate to Monday and spreads them out over the week prior to add hours to our in-person early voting during that prior week. So we're not losing 1 hour of early voting. Ohio allows 28 days of early voting, which is very generous by comparison, for example, to Delaware, Joe Biden's home state, which allows 0 days of early in-person voting. We also, in my bill, are codifying for the first time authority for each county to have one Dropbox location at the Board of Elections, monitored 24/7 with video surveillance. The Democrats think this is terrible because they want Dropboxes placed all over the county. We said, look, we have never had authority for even so much as one Dropbox. It was popular in 2020 because of COVID. People were afraid to walk into the Board of Elections and hand in their ballot. Okay, we did it in 2020. Now we're going to allow it going forward, but only one location at the Board of Elections under 24/7 video surveillance. And we are not going to allow different counties to have different numbers of drop boxes placed, no doubt, in the places where they think they'll get the most votes. We're going to have a uniform statewide standard. Another thing that we're doing in this bill is right now, when you apply for your absent ballot, if you want an absent ballot and vote by mail, you have to fill out a paper form, you have to put your postage on it, and you have to mail it in. What we're now going to allow is people to apply for the ballot through an online application process, provided that they give us two forms of ID, not just one. Under current law, on your paper form, you have to give them one form of ID and a signature. Under the online application process that I'm proposing, and the Secretary of State of Ohio is proposing, you're going to have to give two forms of ID: your driver's license number, your driver's license, and your Social Security. And only if you do not have either one of those will you then be able to use an alternate form of ID, such as a utility statement or a bank statement. We think this is a step forward. People should welcome the convenience of making an online application, and it's actually more secure because of that additional ID requirement. The ID requirement is actually better than just a signature, because if you're like me, your signature might have changed over the years. As we get older, you lose that penmanship you learned in second grade or third grade, and your signature gets a little scrawly. So we think this is a step forward. Those are some of the things that are contained in my bill. Immediately upon introduction of this bill, the Democrats, for their own reasons, decided that this is another voter suppression bill, and they mounted a statewide campaign to try to scuttle my legislation. They were successful for a while because we got sidetracked into discussions over COVID legislation and redistricting issues. But we're going to get that bill back up, teed up, and ready to get batted out of the park here shortly after the primary election occurs in May.
Okay, so we need to take a short break, and we'll be right back on Kathryn Raaker's, that's all right, Kathryn Raaker's World, and Let's Just Talk. Give your website so people can get up there and see everything that you're doing.
Okay.
Your website?
Oh, I don't, you can go to rep30 at ohiohouse.gov to contact me. I don't go in for websites and all that stuff. I'm old.
Right. You're old fashioned. That's fine. Okay, we'll take a little short break and we'll be right back with Congressman Bill Seitz. We are back with Congressman Bill Seitz, and we were talking about his bill for voting and what's happening. It was such a sham the last time. And I'll tell you, with everything that they're doing in our country right now, I don't know how much more they can destroy it at this point. But I have a question for you. Did they stop the one thing that we were doing for energy? Did he cut that all out? Or, cut the pipeline out. Did he cut out the fracking in Ohio?
No, okay. The Biden administration has waged war on fossil fuels since they took office.
Right.
We have gone in one short year from being an energy independent country, not reliant on Arab oil or Arab sources of fossil fuels. And in one short year, because he closed the Keystone Pipeline,
right,
because he has put new regulations on methane emissions, because he has signaled a willingness to scrap fossil fuel development in favor of expensive, unreliable, renewable development, we now see our gasoline prices in Ohio and across the country having gone up dramatically. This morning I filled up. It was 319.9. A year ago, it was 240 or less. And so this is going to have a real bad impact, and it contributes to the unbelievable rate of inflation that we're seeing in Ohio and across the country, all because of the policies of the Biden administration. And their energy policies are a big reason for that inflation, because energy is involved in the production of almost everything. I recently attended a seminar put on by the Western Economic Council about a week ago, and the CFO of Dries Homes indicated that in just 1 year, the average price of a new Dries home is now $707,000 and has gone up by $140,000 in 1 year. And that is because the spiking price of conduit wire, of lumber, of paint, of every single thing that goes into building a home. And you're seeing runaway inflation, runaway gas prices, all the money that was doled out by way of stimulus payments, that's all been eaten up by inflation. You see it at the grocery store. You see it with stew beef prices of $8 and $9 a pound for stew beef, let alone filet mignon. We're talking about the regular, ordinary cuts of meat that regular folks like us use, and it's really hurting the middle class and the more socioeconomically disadvantaged folks the most. So we have a problem with too much money chasing too few goods. And any economist, I wish the Democrats had some, but any economist will tell you when there is too much money chasing too few goods, you are going to have supply shortages and you are going to have inflation. And the value of that dollar will go down. I recently have talked to folks, Kathryn, in the automotive industry, two very well-known car dealers in the Cincinnati area. One was a Kia dealer, one was a Cadillac dealer. They both told me the same thing. We are down to having only 3 to 6 cars, new cars, on our lot. That's it, because we can't get them because of the chip shortage. I think it's important for our national security. We cannot be dependent on communist China for our pharmaceuticals, for our personal protective equipment, for our computer chips. And people say, well, we can always depend on Taiwan. And I would say, maybe not, because after these Olympic Games are over there in Beijing in a few weeks, don't be surprised if communist China doesn't make a move on Taiwan. And our military is simply not capable of resisting that kind of a pirate attack by the communist Chinese. So it's like, wake up, people. We've got to reshore these critical industries back to the United States, even if it costs more money to build them here and buy them here, but at least we would not be dependent on our enemies to supply these critical components for our economy.
Well, here's the other thing. The other thing is fuel. We were fuel independent while Donald Trump was in office.
Right.
And now because of a hatred, and this is what it is, it's a hatred and greed, right?
Yes.
That they wanted to destroy everything he did. And the sad part is that why would we want to be dependent upon Russia and China? And, you know,
right.
I want to ask another question about this. Are we still giving out supplemental payments in Ohio?
No, we stopped the supplemental unemployment payments last June. Okay. We stopped long before the federal government stopped. So we did that in last June. But we are not giving that supplemental amount. We're encouraging people to try to go back to work. But there are terrible labor shortages because so many people got used to collecting their checks and not working.
And not working.
That's why restaurants are operating on reduced hours. Some of them have closed. Some of them are closed on days of the week where they were never closed before. I mean, it really has become a big problem. I want to say this about energy, though, before we leave that subject. The Chinese are laughing at us.
Oh, I know.
They are building new coal-fired plants every day. They are building hundreds of new coal-fired plants while we are busy trying to shutter our coal-fired plants, close down our natural gas pipelines, prevent exploration for natural gas, close the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge to drilling, close the coast to drilling. This is what Biden is doing. This is what Biden has done. And the Chinese are just laughing their tail off because they're continuing to rely on fossil fuels to fuel their growing economy at our expense. And
why can't we do something about it? Why? Because a lot of the things were done with executive order.
yes,
I
that's
know that a lot of states.
you know the reality, political reality is unlike Ohio, where the Republicans control the executive branch and the House and the Senate. In Washington D.C., the Democrats control the executive branch, the House and the Senate.
Right.
So Biden is gotten free reign, and what the Congress won't give him, he just does by executive order, and nobody is there to rein this in, other than occasionally the United States Supreme Court. As you know, they reined in his executive order that everyone with a business of 100 employees or more must require all of their employees to be vaccinated. And you know, the Supreme Court just ruled a couple of weeks ago that that was an excess. It was in excess of his executive order powers. So that was a victory for those of us that believe in curbing executive overreach. But you know, a lot of these executive orders have yet to be challenged or fully litigated. And so we're living with, and you know, I don't even know if it's Joe Biden. I wish Mr. Biden no ill will at all. But I had a grandma, a mother, and 3 aunts that all suffered in their old age with dementia or Alzheimer's. Therefore, I feel like, though I'm not a doctor, I feel like I can see it
Oh, it
in
is.
Biden, just as I have experienced it in the last, 30 or 40 years with my dear relatives, okay? He is obviously losing some of his edge, and I'm being charitable, raising then the question, who is the man behind the curtain? Because it isn't him. If it's not on a teleprompter, he doesn't know what to say, all right?
The point is that we need to get the House back, absolutely, this year. We have to get total control of the Senate, and then we can actually maybe do something about it. I mean, I'm really proud of our representatives and our senators from Ohio. I mean, they are fierce. I mean, I want to meet Jim Jordan. I really do. He doesn't. He rolls his sleeves up and he gets his hands dirty, just like you do. You're not afraid.
Well, I served when Jim was in the Ohio legislature. I did serve with Jim, and he's a dogged fighter, as you say, and he asks great questions. And of course, the media doesn't like that, so they have gone to great lengths to cast him as an extremist of some kind. He's not. He's a regular Ohio guy, and he's a good, solid conservative. I think he represents our state very well, as does Brad Wenstrup, as does Steve Shabbat.
And I know Brad really well, and he,
right.
whenever I see him, he's just so, he really cares about veterans. He really cares about America. And we don't want to lose our Constitution. We don't want to lose what we grew up with.
Right.
Okay. I want to thank you for joining me today. And would you like to give what your next goal and what you see for America, for normal, everyday citizens to help stand up and help you to create what we had before with our Constitution, and to not believe in this woke situation that's out there, and you really fight for children and understanding what we are in America.
Yeah, we've done some great work this year on a new school funding formula in Ohio. We continue to promote school choice. We have a bill pending that I'm following very closely, and we should adopt it very soon, that will ban critical race theory type teachings in our schools. Another great bill would impose duties on the large big tech firms not to discriminate in political viewpoint, not to be engaged in censorship. We have the power to do that because we can regulate common carriers. We're going to call them a common carrier. I mean, anymore, Google and Apple and Facebook and Twitter are to modern society what Ma Bell was to communications 100 years ago. So it's time to put some guardrails on what they do. They have been religiously censoring conservative and political viewpoints. And a lot of us in the conservative movement have had it up to here with that. So we need to rein that in. Those are two of the issues we'll be working on in Ohio over the next couple months.
And the other thing that I want to bring up before we say goodbye is that there is a lot of wrong or misleading information on the vaccines to the point of no return. There are over 800,000 people that are allergic to some of the vaccines that are out there, and I'm one of those people. So we have had the cure for this for a while. We have other things that we can do now to protect ourselves, all right? And I'm not saying don't take a vaccine. That's not what I'm saying. But understand that there's other people that can't take. They can have one dose of the vaccine and that's it.
Well, Kathryn, I've been vaccinated and boosted, but the Ohio House has already passed a bill. It's called House Bill 218. And what it says is any employer that wants to force a vaccine must honor 4 exemptions: medical exemptions, conscience exemptions, religious exemptions, and finally an exemption if you can show that you have natural immunity by reason of having had COVID before, and if you can show that that natural immunity is as good or better than the immunity you get briefly from the vaccine. Under any of those circumstances, the employer will be required to honor your request for an exemption. That bill passed the House overwhelmingly a couple months ago. We're waiting on the Ohio Senate to enact it, and maybe in a future show you can find one of your favorite Ohio state senators and grill them about why they're not getting this bill passed.
I've been doing a lot of research on this,
Sure.
and I think it's really important to protect as well everyone, but also understand that there are circumstances like you're talking about. I want to thank you again for joining me today.
Great.
And
Who day? I'll leave you with this thought. Who they think gonna beat
Who
them?
day, right? Because guess what? They better win Saturday,
That's
right? So anyhow, thank you so very much for joining me, and give your thing on the house so that people can go look you up.
Yeah, if you want to communicate with me, our email address is rep3030@ohiohouse.gov. Happy to hear from you anytime.
Okay, and thank you. I'd like to have you on again next month if you can think about it, so
Sure.
that we can have an update. Every single month I want you on until we win.
Well, thanks, Kristen. Have a great week.
Thank you, and thanks so much. And don't forget to go to our websites at KathrynRaakersWorld.com and Let's Just Talk Radio.com. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.